位好，我叫张义杰，吉林省长春市人。1977年毕业于吉林大学，大学毕业后，先后在国务院中国对外经济联络部、对外贸易经济合作部、现中国商务部办公厅工作。1987年至1990年，我被派驻中国驻罗马尼亚大使馆长期工作，任经济二秘。回国后，继续在外经贸部办公厅工作，历任副处长、处长、办公厅党支部书记、广州出口商品交易会大会办公室副主任等职。
My name is Yijie Zhang. I'm from Changchun, Jilin Province, and graduated from Jilin University. After graduation, I was assigned to work at the Ministry of Economic Relations. From 1980s to 1990s, I was assigned to the Chinese Embassy in Romania as a second secretary. After being reassigned back to China, I continued to work as a section director at the Minister of Commerce until 1999.
我于1994年修炼法轮大法。1999年7月，江泽民操控中共政府以经济上截断、名义上搞臭、肉体上消灭的灭绝政策，对1亿法轮功群体实施残酷迫害，下令3个月消灭法轮功。
I started to cultivate Falun Dafa in 1994. On July 1999, the former head of the Chinese Communist regime, Jiang Zemin, gave the order to starve them financially, destroy them mentally and spiritually, and destroy them physically, ordered eliminate Falun Gong in 3 months. Chinese Communist Party started crackdown and brutally persecuted 100 million Falun Dafa practitioners.
我因坚持信仰被列入重点人黑名单，遭到外经贸部的严厉打压，经历了9个月的高压逼迫，先后被撤销所有党政职务，降低为最低职员，开除党纪，开除公务员队伍，调离部机关，下放到企业接受监管。
I was blacklisted for insisting on my belief and was severely suppressed by the Minister of Commerce. Within 9 months, I lost the party secretary title, party membership, and administrative director's title, was demoted to the lowest staff level. Suppressed by the Minister of Commerce. Within 9 months, I lost the party secretary title, party membership, and administrative director's title, was demoted to the lowest staff level, was dismissed from the civilian ranks, and was finally driven out of the ministry.
这期间，我无数次被以株连影响丈夫、孩子的前途相要挟转化，施压我丈夫逼我转化，逼迫他与我离婚。我丈夫和我同在外经贸部工作，他多年担任正司级参赞欧洲司副司长，长期负责中国对东欧诸国政府间的经贸事务、国别政策，和担任亚太经合组织秘书长。因我修炼法轮功，他被多年免提职，限制使用，饱受株连。
During this time, they used my husband and my children's future as a bargaining chip to force me to transform. They threatened my husband to force me to transform and even force him to divorce me. My husband also worked at the Ministry of Commerce. He served as counselor and deputy director of the European Department for many years and responsible for China's intergovernmental economic and trade affairs with Eastern European countries and was Secretary General of APEC. Because I practiced Falun Gong, he was exempt from promotion and restricted for many years.
我因坚持信仰，拒绝转化，先后7次被非法绑架关押，九死一生。2001年3月，仅因我不放弃修炼，便被中央610组织首恶李兰清点名非法劳教1年半，因拒绝转化又被加刑10个月。在劳教所里， 我经受了灭绝人性的几十种超越生理极限的非人虐待、侮辱、酷刑折磨。
Because of my insisting on belief and refusing to give up, I was abducted and detained illegally 7 times. On March 2001, I was illegally detained and commanded by the Center 610 organization Li Lanqing to labor camp for 1.5 years. I was sentenced to another 10 months for refusing to transform. In the labor camp, I had endured dozens of inhuman abuses, insults, and tortures that transcend physical limits.
整个劳教期，我都被单独关押，24小时昼夜监控，暴晒、冷冻、惩罚性军训、饥饿、干渴，几天不许上厕所，长期不准洗澡、洗漱、洗衣服，长期剥夺睡眠，强制通宵达旦劳动，坐人肉椅、开飞机、鞋底抽脑袋，寒冬揪住衣领灌凉水等等虐待和叫不出名的酷刑从未间断过。
Throughout the labor camp period, I was held in solitary confinement and monitoring 24 hours day and night. I had gone through different sorts of tortures, such as baking under scorching sun, freezing, punitive military training exercise, starving, prohibit drinking water, no access to the toilet for a few days, long time prohibit washing, bathing, and clothes washing.
劳教所里
long-term deprived of sleep, forced overnight slavery labor, hit head with shoe soles, pouring cold water into clothes in freezing water. Those tortures had not stopped.
劳教所里最残忍，几乎使我丧失生命，是对我几次封监转化。第一次，我被折磨连续18个昼夜不许睡觉，42小时车轮战洗脑，伴着五花八门的精神和肉体折磨毒打。
The most crucial and almost lost of my life was 3 severe tortures. First time, I was continuously tortured for 18 days and nights. I was not allowed to sleep and brainwashed for 42 hours, accompanied by a variety of mental and physical tortures and beatings.
第二次，我被秘密关进一间封闭的小黑屋，由警察、妓女、吸毒犯共9人昼夜值班。在这个小黑屋里，我经历了在不许打一个瞌睡的监视惩罚下，站立了42个昼夜，同时被施以各种虐待、酷刑折磨，逼迫转化，身体遭受了巨大摧残。我的坚定不转化，使邪恶的手段越发残忍。他们大打出手，逼我当场写下转化书。
Second time, I was secretly put into a closed, dark room, where a total of 9 police officers, prostitutes, and the drug addicts were on duty day and night. In this small, dark room, I experienced keep standing for 42 days and nights under the surveillance punishment of not allowed doors. At the same time, I was tortured and suffered great physical damage. My persistence to my belief made them more cruelty. They hit me heavily and forced me to write the give up belief notice.
第3次，我被打得失去意识休克，被拖进一间空房，秘密关押了17天。17天后，我再次从死亡边缘走回来。
The third time, I was beaten into unconscious shock, was dragged into an empty room and held in secret for 17 days. 17 days later, I woke back from the brink of death.
劳教所2年多的残酷迫害，我满头白发，容貌皆非，思维、语言、动作迟钝，大脑经常空白，双眼阶段性失明，腰期严重损伤等等。
For more than 2 years of brutal persecution in the labor camp, I had gray hair and changed my face look. My thinking, speech, and movements were dull and slow. My brain was often feeling empty. My eyes were progressively blind, and my waist and knee were seriously injured.
从劳教所出来后，我决定面对国际社会，以亲身经历揭露这场残酷迫害。由于海关黑名单，多方努力正常出境受阻，我再次放下生死，决心越境走出中国大陆。2006年9月15日，我只身踏上最后一条生死难卜之路。我历经危难险阻艰辛，经过10天10夜，终于越过3国边境，到达泰国，向那里的联合国机构提请政治庇护。
After leaving the labor camp, I decided to expose this cruel persecution through my personal experience to the international community. Due to the custom blacklist, my efforts to go abroad were blocked. I decided to cross the border out of mainland China. On September 15, 2006, I embarked on the last difficult road of life and death alone. After 10 days and 10 nights, I finally arrived in Thailand and sought political asylum to the UN there.
北京方面发现我失踪，公安部全国通缉，时任部长薄熙来软禁我丈夫8个月，停止他的一切外事出访，仅出国门，同时宣布开除我的公职。至此，我在我的祖国那片土地上付出的所有辛劳、工作、事业、家园、财富、丈夫、儿女亲情等等，全部被中共邪恶政府剥夺殆尽。
My disappearance angered the Beijing authorities. They put me on the national wanted list. The then minister, Bo Xilai, placed my husband under house arrest for 8 months, stopped all his business travels, banned him from going abroad, and expelled my government job. At that point, my career, wealthy, husband, children, and the love on my homeland all have been taken away by the evil government of the Communist Party.
2007年10月，在国际社会救援下，我来到美国，兑现诺言，完成使命。在此，我感谢美国政府和参众两院及国际社会所有为法轮功发声的正义人士、党派、政府。我希望更多的正义国家、党派、经济实体摆脱中共的利益捆绑，肩担道义，归还法轮功群体以司法公正，全面清算，结束这场人类浩劫，恢复人类传统的真正文明，走向未来。谢谢。
In October 2007, I came to the United States with the help of the international community. Here, I thank the U.S. government, the House of Representatives, and the international community for spoke out for Falun Gong. I call on people worldwide who hold justice high in their hearts to help bring an end to this persecution suffered by Falun Dafa practitioners in China. Thank you.
Yeah. We have a distinguished guest to join the forum today, who is the president of American Values and president-appointed commissioner of United States Commissions of International Religious Freedom, who was undersecretary of our educations and assistant to President Ronald Reagan for policy developments. He has been the powerful leader of our country, particularly in religious liberty. Okay, let's welcome Commissioner Gary Boyer of USERF.
Thank you very much, Doctor. It's great to be with you all here again today. I was invited to be part of one of your gatherings back in April, which I think was the 20th anniversary of the Falun Gong's historic appeal to the Chinese government. And since I've been appointed to USERF, as was mentioned by President Trump, I've had the opportunity to meet with many followers of Falun Gong and practitioners of it. And I must say that no matter what you are going through, no matter what is happening in China, I am always inspired and impressed by your dignity and your courage in the face of such evil. And I think many other Americans and people that know of you share the same view. Now, I think all of you are familiar with the U.S. Commission on International Religious Liberty. We are an independent government commission. It was created by Congress as part of the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998, or what we call IRFA. And our purpose is to monitor and countries around the world to promote religious liberty and human rights, and to support and to report on religious freedom. We're specifically supposed to identify countries that are violating this basic human right of being able to seek God and worship God as you see fit, this right to follow your conscience and your heart as each human being wants to do, to seek the meaning of life. And so this commission looks at what's happening around the world and how various governments allow or don't allow their people those basic human rights, that sort of definition of human dignity. And we've got a great professional staff. Dominic Nordic is here today, if you could raise your hand. And he does incredibly good work. And we have many other professional staff. We have 9 commissioners that spend our time on this. But I would say to you that if suddenly we were told tomorrow that we didn't have to monitor or do a report on any other country in the world, that the only country we should spend our resources on and all of our staff should be devoted to would be the nation of Communist China, we would still not have enough resources. We would still not have enough manpower to catalog the incredibly widespread violation of this basic human right to search for the meaning of life, to search for God, to worship God as you see fit. USERF was created, as I said, back in 1998. The commission began in 1999. From the very first report that the commission made, we have been trying to warn about Communist China and its threat to religious liberty. And I would say in my case, it was mentioned by the doctor that I had been appointed to work with Ronald Reagan for 8 years. Even back in those years, China was an issue that I cared about a great deal. And some of you may know, I'm sure some of you know the history perhaps better than I do. In the late 1980s, there was a huge debate going on in Washington, D.C. about whether more trade with China would change China. And I'm proud to say that I was one of those that argued that it would not change China. That in fact, more trade with China would end up changing the United States. And sadly, I think you would agree with me that while many Americans understand what's happening in China, there are those now that have an interest in the status quo. There are those, and this is, I'm speaking personally and not on behalf of USERF at this point, there are those in the American business community that are more interested in profits in China than they are being a voice for human rights. And so it's something now that actually complicates the challenge that we have. I did serve for Ronald Reagan for 8 years, and one of the reasons I was attracted to him is that he believed the world could not survive half slave and half free. Either slavery would prevail or freedom would prevail. And he dedicated his administration to ending the slavery in the Soviet Union. And today I'm very proud to be a presidential appointee of President Trump on the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, because I believe President Trump understands the seriousness of the human rights issues in China and will continue to work on those as he works on trade and national security and other issues. Ever since President Xi Jinping came to power in 2013, the Chinese government has cracked down on independent religious and faith groups. They've gotten worse. The Falun Gong have been particularly and especially hit hard. USURF has heard firsthand accounts like the one that you just heard from survivors and family members who have been able to tell us about their treatment at the hands of the Chinese Communist government. And we know that this year alone, the authorities in China have arrested thousands of Falun Gong practitioners simply because they wanted to practice or share their faith in peace. USURF is deeply concerned about the ongoing reports that we are getting from other countries around the world about organ harvesting from prisoners of conscience. Are we living in the 1500s? In the 1600s? Is barbarism making a comeback? This is unacceptable. It's impossible to even imagine that in this age, with all the technological breakthroughs that we have, that something like this is even possible today. China, you know, is an emerging nation. Communist China wants to take its place among the world powers. It has great scientific prowess. It is a real challenge to the United States in order to keep up with the growing scientific achievements in China. But they cannot be a great nation based on technology if they are engaged in something like harvesting organs from prisoners of conscience. No great nation would do that. It doesn't matter what accomplishments they make. They won't be a great nation as long as they're engaged in that kind of activity. Because of China, the Chinese government's systematic, ongoing, and egregious persecution of the Falun Gong, as well as how they have treated Christians, Tibetan Buddhists, the Uyghur Muslims, USURF has consistently recommended that our State Department designate China as what the bureaucrats that did the legislation call a country of particular concern. I always say that because the phrase, a country of particular concern, it sounds bloodless. It doesn't really capture what we're talking about. We're designating them as a country that regularly, throughout the administration of its law, denies people human dignity and the right to worship God. It's unacceptable. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen that the New York Times, not a conservative newspaper, not a newspaper that would like many of the things I've been involved with over the year, not a fan in many ways of President Trump, but even the very, very liberal New York Times has been doing exposés on what is going on in China. And they published some papers recently with chilling details about what the Chinese government has done to Muslims in Xinjiang. And anybody that would read that, I would hope, would be convicted by that and by the information. Now, one of the first questions that comes to mind is, where did the New York Times get such information? And I think the very fact that they have it is an encouragement, because it means that there are people within the belly of the beast, within the Chinese government, within the Chinese bureaucracy, perhaps within the Chinese Communist Party itself, that is so concerned about what's being done in China to the Chinese people, that they were willing to risk probably great dangers to get this report to the New York Times. One of the leaked documents discussed a Chinese official, Wang Yangji, a former Communist Party boss in a county in southwestern Xinjiang. At first, he went along with what the government was doing to the Uyghur Muslims. But at some point, he could not live with himself. And so he went to the government, and not an easy thing to do, as I'm sure many of you would know firsthand. He went to the Chinese government and said, the treatment you are engaged in doesn't fit fit the facts on the ground. And we don't know what's going on with him now, but I'm sure he took quite a risk, and that information has gotten out to the American people and out around the world. The Chinese Communist Party's crackdown on the Falun Gong, the internment of millions of Muslims, the raids on Christian churches, the surveillance of Tibetan Buddhists, all indicate that the Chinese Communist government fears its own people. And I think they would fear them in good reason. The party's war on faith does not make China popular among its own people. What citizen of any nation in the world wants to live in a country where you cannot have the basic human dignity that all people want, of searching for God and finding the meaning of life? Now, the Chinese Communist Party, I think, sometimes is seen as being all-powerful. It is able to take this technology and use it for its own nefarious purposes. The raids that they do, the monitoring of people's social media, the facial recognition that's being used right now. But they are not powerful enough. They will never be powerful enough because they cannot look into what is in the hearts of each Chinese citizen. They could stop all social media. They could put your photos and the photos of anybody in China in some data bank. They still will not know what is written on your heart and soul. And as we're seeing in Hong Kong, and as we've seen historically around the world, ultimately dictatorships will fall to this yearning every human being has to be treated with dignity and value and worth. Now, I know we have a very gloomy day today, but the sun will come out tomorrow. And the situation in China is very gloomy when it comes to religious liberty and human rights. But I want you, if you don't remember anything else I said today, to remember this tomorrow and the next day. The sun will come out in communist China. Freedom will come to communist China. Someday people will be able to worship in peace and safety and follow their hearts and souls in formally communist China. And when that day comes, as I believe it surely will, history will record it was the brave followers of Falun Gong and the followers of other faiths that are responsible for what I believe will be the final liberation of China and the restoration of religious liberty. But until that day comes, the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom will continue to call out their violations of human liberty and do everything we can to advise the President, the Congress, and others to take strong action to make things as difficult as possible on the Chinese Communist Party. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner Bauer. Commissioner Bauer is very busy and she needs to maybe attend some meetings. So we open to the media reporters. If you have one or two questions, please raise your hand and just go ahead and ask questions to Commissioner Bauer. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes,
Peter Wang with NTD TV. Just now you mentioned that was the People's Resistance, the communist regime of China, on one hand seems very strong, but on the other hand, they seem very fear about the people.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering, what do you think about the stability of this regime and what the international community and United States, the leverage we have against this regime?
What we can do against such a strong regime? Is that what you're asking? Yes. Well, I mean, I think some of it is being done now on the economic front. You know, the president's tariffs on Chinese goods is controversial in the American business community. But I think it's sending a strong message to the United States business community that they can no longer have as one of their top goals to make a whole lot of money in China. And we know, for example, that many businesses are beginning, even not waiting for what the trade dispute, how that's going to come out. They're going on and taking steps now to move their manufacturing chain out of China and to other countries in Asia, or in some cases bringing their plants back to the United States. I think in Congress in the United States, as you know, many divisions, very, probably the most divisive time in the United States between the two political parties. But I see slowly a consensus forming between both the Republican Party and the Democrat Party that China cannot just be dealt with on the basis of trade, that we have to look at national security issues. We have to look at Chinese espionage in the United States. We need to elevate human rights and religious liberty. We need to speak up in international bodies like the United Nations, to use all the various levers that we have as an influential nation like ourselves to get our allies in Europe and elsewhere to follow us with the goal of eventually a better day happening for the Chinese people.
Is there any other one?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Bauer. My question is, when CCP brutal violence to Hong Kong people have been exposed to the world, when NBA manager, like you said, confront CCP threat, and more and more people talk to us, the media said that what Falun Gong practitioners have been said, that the CCP is evil, is correct. So in your way, you have been persist and promoting American value, universal value for many, many years. In your view, for another educational public awareness, how to help people to resist the communist ideology and persist the universal value? Thank you.
Well, look, it is a challenge. It is very much of a challenge to get the American people and others to understand what is going on and to focus on these international issues, because Americans, like the people of every country, tend to think about their own lives and their own economic challenges and so forth. But there are more and more people on both the left and the right in American politics that are beginning to speak about this. I think that the United States in the past, when the American people get information, they rise to the occasion. I think there's enough news now about what China is doing that polling data shows that more and more people are not thinking about China as a trading partner, but are beginning to see them as even more than just a competitor, but rather as someone that wants to, under communist leadership, replace the United States as a leader around the world. And so I think the reality of the situation as it becomes more and more well known will help rally the American people. I don't know how many of you know this, but for 2 years in a row, President Trump and Secretary of State Pompeo have held a meeting of government officials in Washington to talk about how to promote religious liberty. And in both of those ministerials, many, many nations were represented, and I know there were representatives of the Falun Gong community that were part of that. We found out that in the ministerial this year, we knew that communist China wouldn't attend. That would be bizarre. They would have nothing to offer to the discussion. But we were puzzled when we saw that some other nations around the world that we thought were going to attend ended up backing out. And we found out later that they backed out because these were countries and Africa and in Asia and in Latin America that had taken out large loans from the Communist Chinese government to help them out of their financial difficulties. And the Communist Chinese government contacted these countries and reminded them of these loans and said, you know, we will not take it as a friendly act if your government goes to this meeting in Washington, D.C. about religious liberty, because this meeting may end up criticizing China. So I think when people, now the average American doesn't know about this yet, but that fact is getting out and it's being talked about. What I'm getting at is that I think it's going to be harder and harder for Americans to not realize that what is going on is a very, I don't know if it's another Cold War, if you want to use that language, if it's something worse than that, but it is a great, let's just say, competition between two completely different worldviews. In which model can the rest of the world follow if they want freedom and prosperity and success? And we believe it's imperative that the world follow the model that has been presented by the United States about following religious liberty and human dignity and allowing people to follow their own conscience. Communist China is making it very clear that they have a quite different model. And there are some countries around the world that will be challenged by that model. So I think, on the one hand, the fact that such a competition is taking place is a disturbing thing. On the other hand, it will force everyone in the world, every American, every nation, every citizen of every country, to choose either the dark path of totalitarianism and authoritarianism and depriving people of the right to follow their heart and soul and seek God, or whether they will follow the path of freedom and liberty and the fact that every human being, regardless of the color of their skin or how much money they have in the bank, have dignity and value and worth. And I am enough of an optimist to believe that ultimately those of us all over the world who believe in the dignity and value and worth of every human being will prevail. And when that happens, it will be a great day indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Bauer. Let's give him another round of applause. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Boyer. For member of press, if you want to ask further question, please follow up in the hallway. We have another very special distinguished guest today join the forum, who is the senior member of the Congress, who has been the chairman for more than 10 years of Conservative Opportunity Society, which is a powerful caucus in Congress as a conscience of constitutional conservatives. Let's welcome Congressman Steve King.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation, the opportunity to be here, and I particularly appreciate the things I've already learned. We come to this place and people say, well, we're going to learn something from Steve King giving a little speech here, maybe, but also when I come, I learn also. This is a two-way street. We benefit from each other, and we draw strength from each other, and we solidify our convictions from each other. And the tragedy that's taking place in China, and I've made one trip into the mainland, but I stopped a lot of places around the mainland, and also up into Lhasa, Tibet, and I got to look at what was going on there. And I'll start with that, because I think that it illuminates what the objective is of the mainland Chinese. And that is that they saw the unique culture of the Tibetans, and they're there in the isolated place in the Himalayas, and so they wanted to change that, and of course there's been lots of trouble there over the years. And as I left, this is a few years ago, they were just finishing the tunnel through the mountains so they could pour Chinese into Tibet to flood the communities and shift the culture away from what it was when I was there and away from what it is today. That strategy in Tibet seems to be applied across the entire continent. And I look to the west, to the Uyghurs, and to the northeast, and to where the Tuidongs are, and it seems to be the same strategy. There's a standard that the Chinese mainland government seems to want to impose on every human person in that country, and that is a standard of atheism, a standard of conformity, a behavior that looks to the state to get permission before you do anything, and to scrub out the independent thinking and scrub out the religions that are there. And here in this country, we're formed on religious freedom here in the United States of America. And so we aren't very patient with anybody that wants to trample on the religious freedoms of any people, whatever their religion is. But I appreciate Gary Bauer's statement is that we are all formed in the image of God. And there's 7 billion people on the planet. He gave us the distinction so that we can tell each other apart. And if you've ever thought about it, 7+ billion people on the planet, no two faces are the same. They can be identical twins. And I guarantee you their mothers can tell the difference, even though they're identical DNA. And after a while, if you pay attention, any of us can tell the difference. But what would it be like if it was just a face and all faces were the same? Or if we all put on a mask and our voices were all the same? We wouldn't know who to trust. We wouldn't know who had promised us. We wouldn't know who had broken the promise. Our relationship with people would be so different. And God has such a vision to just give us a face that's unique. And that tells us that we're created in His image, but He gave us the distinctions to tell each other apart. That's another gift from God. And so when I look across China and I hear the ghastly stories of what they're doing to you, and the pictures that I just saw outside, where a young lady has been burned all across her face and is now deceased, it's stunning and shocking to me that any group of people would go that far to force someone into conformity and then kill them if they don't conform, to send a message to those that are still alive to conform to the directive of the nation state, the Marxist nation state that was shaped by Mao. And I would reflect on another narrative that I wish it had turned out a little bit differently. But in early June this year, I boarded a plane out of Cleveland to Detroit, and the gentleman sitting next to me on the window was an Asian gentleman, and I just began to chat with him, and I said, "Are you going home?" And, "Well, not exactly." And I talked to him a little more, and he said, "I'm going to Beijing." So I said, "You're going to be in Beijing for the 30th anniversary of Tiananmen Square." And so I thought I would tell him a little bit about Chinese history. Well, I learned a little bit about Chinese history. It happens to me a lot. He said, "Yes, I was there 30 years ago. I was there on the square, and my friend next to me was shot to death beside me. So I'm going back with my American passport, and I'm going to buy a bottle of hooch, and I'm going to go to that spot where his blood was spilled across those stones, and I'm going to wash them clean with that bottle of Chinese alcohol." And it was a stunning thing to hear. And I talked to him about that, and I said, "Did you think that early June of 1989, if you had made that move in China after the wall came down in Berlin, November 9th of that same year, how much more momentum you would have had and how much harder it would have been for the Chinese military forces to go in and kill people, to put an end to this desire for freedom?" And he said, "Yes, I've thought about that, and I believe if the timing had been different, we would have succeeded." And today we have the streets full in Hong Kong. People still reaching for that freedom and resisting the oppression that they see being perpetrated against you and your people. They do not want that to go into Hong Kong. And I remember our President George W. Bush, who said, "Freedom beats in the heart of every person." We all desire for freedom. And that's a gift from God in this country. And if God is going to give people in this country a gift all people are equal across this planet, that means that gift of freedom is at least owed to you and one day needs to be served to you. And so so I've done a few things here that I think might help a little bit. One of them was that I just learned a little bit ago that my language that on Chinese surveillance was incorporated. I've been working at this for a while, but it's incorporated into the National Defense Authorization Act, which we expect to pass. They just asked for my vote would be on. I go, yep, I'm a yes. So all the rest of those people can follow me, I hope. They all won't, but we will still pass the NDAA off to the Senate, and the President expects to sign it. National Defense Authorization Act, and the language that's included in it, I happen to have a copy of it right here, and it's Section 1260. It says, modification of annual report on military and security developments involving the People's Republic of China. And so here's the language. An assessment of, this requires an assessment of China's expansion of its surveillance state, including any correlation of such expansion with the oppression of its citizens or its threat to United States national security interests around the world, and an overview of the extent to which such surveillance corresponds to an overall respect or lack thereof for human rights in China, especially for religious and ethnic minorities. That's the language that'd be law in America within a few weeks. And we should get a report back that will be, I expect it to be critical of the treatment that has been imposed upon the Falun Gong and the Uyghurs and the Tibetans and everybody else that the Chinese think are not cooperating or not conforming in this one-size-fits-all approach that comes out of Mao, that you exist for the state. You exist because you're a creation of God. You don't exist to serve the state exists to serve your will, we the people. And one day, you're going to be a free people. If we keep working at this, the adversity that you're facing will bring this around to the point where we may, as Martin Luther King said, I may not be there with you. We may not live to see it. But one day, all the people on this planet are destined to live and be free. And I should tell you that I was just bragging a little bit earlier that around our Thanksgiving table, Marilyn and I started out just two of us, and at Thanksgiving you count around the table, and now there are 16, and we sit down as a block in church, 16 of us, and that's how I count my blessings, by my wife, our sons, our daughters-in-law, our grandchildren. Those are all tremendous blessings, and I had a group of young Chinese students in my office here a few months ago. We did talk about this, and so they about once a year I have that kind of a meeting, and I started this one out differently. Usually it's, well, do you have any questions? Now I'll answer them. But I started out a little differently, and I said, well, where are you from? And they told me different places in China, a couple from Beijing, Shanghai, around. I kind of knew generally where they were from, and then I said, okay, tell me about your brothers and sisters. Oh, there were no brothers and sisters. You already know that. Yeah. Tell me about your aunts and uncles. We don't have any. So what an empty experience to not be able to look around what I call a Thanksgiving table and have it just be mom and dad, me alone, or my wife or husband. That's it, and maybe one child. It's an empty kind of a way. God's plan is go forth, be fruitful, and multiply. And so the gift that we have here, this belief that our blessings are counted by our family and our children. And I didn't start this with the first birth of my grandchildren, but I'll say the last 4 out of 8 I did. I want to be there when they're born, and I can't wait to pick those little babies up and love them. And so I'll take that little baby off aside, away from mom and dad and the doctors and everything. This is me and this new little grandchild. And I will say, thank you, God, for this wonderful miracle that you've served up to us to love for our lifetimes this day. And I pray that this child lives a long and a healthy life and gets a good education, is productive, and is a servant to you, Lord. And the end of that long life, when you call this child home, your child, this child of God home, may the last breaths that this baby draw be freer than the first breaths that this baby has drawn this moment when this little baby is born. That's what I want to see. I want to see each generation be more free, not less free. More faithful, not less faithful. Exercise more God-given liberty, not less. And if you look around the world, even in this country, we see instances where we're conceding liberty and freedom out of a sense of security, or the idea that somehow socialism is going to serve up some things better than having to earn it yourself. And whenever you rely upon the government to provide something for you, you're sacrificing some freedom. And I want maximum freedom, and I want the vigor of all humanity to be productive and to grow our families and to make sure that they are raised in an education of faith and family and freedom. And so on these things that are before us today, I just want to make sure that I didn't leave anything out that I thought was important. But there's something I wanted to add to this, and I think it might be a good way to close if I can find it. It is okay to do a little, I'm going to find this, there's a prayer that I carry around with me, and I know where it is, I think. It is here and here. Okay. Jamestown. Yes, okay. This is a prayer that the early settlers in Jamestown, when they sailed in just south of here a little ways down along the Atlantic coast, and they came here for religious freedom. And so when they landed, one of the first things they did was to erect a cross there, and they knelt at that cross, and they said this, and they offered this prayer. The founders erected a cross, they knelt, they took communion, and they prayed. And this is the prayer, the Jamestown prayer from more than 400 years ago. Just as they didn't know the size of the continent, it was a piece of ground sitting there that they hadn't explored, but they knew what their calling was. And so this is their prayer. We do hereby dedicate this land and ourselves to reach the people within these shores with the gospel of Jesus Christ, and to raise up godly generations after us, and with these generations take the kingdom of God to all the earth. May this covenant of dedication remain to all generations as long as this earth remains, and may this land, along with England, be evangelist to the world. They were called. 400 years ago, they knew they were answering a calling, and that's one of the first things they did when they landed on this continent. And it's still our calling. It's our calling here in America to reach out and to all the world and be evangelists to the world, as the Jamestown prayer says. And so as hard as it might seem, the torture that takes place, the sterilizations that used to take place, and I think in some cases still do, the oppression that comes out of that nation state of Maoists and Marxists does not allow for freedom, but you can take it back a little bit at a time. And we're going to be with you, and you're going to be in our prayers. And one day, we're all going to be free people on the whole planet. God bless you all. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you very much, Congressman Steve King. And let's give him another applause. We have, Congressman is very busy and have a schedule to go. So if you have any questions, the media reporter can give Congressman some questions.
Thank you, Congressman. Katie Wang with NTD TV. Just a quick question about this 退党 movement, because in the last 15 years, after the publishing of the 9 commentary on Chinese Communist Party, then we have seen that over 347 million Chinese have quit, renounced their membership of Communist Party and the related organizations. So what do you think about the impact of this movement?
Well, I think that's tremendous news to renounce your membership in the Communist Party. If I were a member, I'd join right in with that, of course. That's a big movement. That's a big piece of the population of China. of course it's larger than the population of the entire United States, has said, I've had enough with communism. And how about the inspiration that's got to be coming out of Hong Kong for all the people across the continent in China? It seemed to me that every day that this goes by, the street's fuller than they've ever been. A couple of days ago I read. That means this movement's not getting weaker, it's getting stronger. And I'm also hearing that some of the leaders are being disappeared. If that's true, and I believe it to be true, then there's other leaders that are emerging. And, you know, I remember when the Nazis were oppressing all across Europe back during the Second World War, some of the freedom fighters that were there was a young lady, I should remember her name and I don't, but I remember the picture of her standing on a barrel while they were preparing to hang her. They hung her, but right before they hung her, she said, "We want freedom and you can't hang us all." It's going to cost a price. But the price in Tiananmen Square left a marker down 30 years ago and a half years ago now. And what's going on in Hong Kong today, let that be the inspiration for the entire continent. And I will tell you that when things fell short in Tiananmen Square in June of 1989, but did that inspire then the falling of the Iron Curtain and the wall in Berlin that same year? I think so. And I have a piece of that Berlin Wall in my office. I didn't show that to you. I should have. Next time in, I will do that. You ask me, I'll get it. But I have a piece. It's not a great big piece, but about this big, and it's framed. And I point to that, and I say, this piece of this wall, it is a piece of literally the Iron Curtain, and it represents the single most significant historical event in my lifetime. And that was the falling of the wall, the opening up, and for a time, freedom echoed all the way across the continent, all the way across Europe. It went past Moscow. It echoed all the way to the Pacific Ocean for a time. And we weren't able to take advantage of that and get it to take root as quickly as it needed to. And then over time, they pushed it back again and pushed it back again. But even still, that opened up a lot of the world. And if you notice, the Eastern Europeans, they are the strongest for freedom of the people we're dealing with in that continent. Because the people who have achieved their freedom most recently have the memories of living without it. And so they will more jealously protect and fight to protect that freedom that they have. And so I'm hopeful that that day comes, that we get another shot at this, but I'm inspired by Hong Kong, and I think we all should be inspired by that. And to see that a population larger than that of the United States has renounced the Communist Party. So, and I am no lover of communists. They all know that. I don't know. They're probably tapping this room. I don't care. But they have been. They are an anathema to freedom, and it's completely. You couldn't be a communist and be a faithful Christian, or you couldn't follow faith because they say you exist to serve the state, and when you no longer serve the state. Or if we can find another way, they might just kill you and take your organs or dump you in a ditch somewhere because you no longer have a function to serve the state. And it's true in communist China, it's true in North Korea. Those are probably two of the worst places in the world right now. So I hope I answered your question. You kind of lit me up with it, and you were the best listener in the room too, by the way. So.
Any other one?
Thank you so much, Congressman. Sherry Dong with Epoch Times. The CCP's persecution to Falun Gong has been going on for last 20 years, hasn't ever stopped. And just the last month, in November, 46 Falun Gong practitioners were sentenced, and there are quite a few died under persecution. And one of them was tortured to death in the detention center in China. So what do you think the United States can do to help to stop the inhuman persecution and stop this crisis, the biggest human rights crisis? Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's some of the things we can do here in Congress. We have passed 1 or 2 resolutions already to speak to this. And the language that's in the National Defense Authorization Act that I just read to you, that'll give us a report. And that report will be something we can look at, grab it, and decide to push even harder. So what it amounts to is that we're trying to become the conscience that needs to be imposed upon the leadership within China. And that all helps, but when you have loved ones that are being tortured and tortured to death, it's hard to be patient. I recognize that. It's very hard to be patient. I wanted to speak to something else also. I mean, all of us raise our voices, but I want to speak to something else. That's this social credit that's going on. And, well, first, I'll just back up to what I'm hearing out of the Uyghur camps, and many of those too, that they will go in and take the kids out of the home, children out of the home, put them off in a camp to try to impose the Chinese value system on them, and so then move a minder into the household, take away any of the clothes that reflect their religion, take away any of the diet that reflects their religion, get them to conform day and night to what they think is typical behavior of the kind of Chinese that they want you all to be. This, and then, okay, from that, then comes the social credit component of this, where if you do the right things, you get points that are good. If you do the wrong things, they take away points or don't award you points. I'm not sure how that works. And a simple example, I think you've all heard it, is if you have lots of social credits, then you can buy an airplane ticket to fly from Beijing to Shanghai. But if you don't have enough credits, then you have to get on the slow train that stops at every stop. And that's just one little thing. But there must be many, many others going on like that, where they're trying to control behavior through social credits. And when I sat with those young students in my office, I asked them, how's this working? And they said, well, it's not in full force across the whole country, only in some of the provinces, but it seems to be working, and so we think it's going to be nationwide pretty soon. And I'm looking at and listening and watching their body language. They were not a bit concerned about getting, their objective in life would be to earn social credits so that their lives would be a little easier. In other words, conform to the directive of the state. And so I said to them, your country steals $500 billion in U.S. creativity, intellectual property every year, $500 billion. And I said, why do you have to do that? Look at yourselves. God has gifted you with the brain power, the intellect, to match anybody in the world. You're not short on mental capacity, you're not short on ambition, you're not short on anything, except you're not allowed to use your creativity. Where we can have college students sit here and all night long argue metaphysics until the sun comes up in the morning, generate ideas, build partnerships, come up with things that start off Microsoft or Apple. Those things come out of those kind of discussions. And none of us, if Albert Einstein, if you put him in a phone booth and said, okay, we're going to need the theory of relativity here, and you're going to have to produce the equation, we're not going to let you out of the phone booth till you're done. No chance. You cannot be creative unless you can interact with other creative people. And so, and I said, that's why China has to steal $500 billion worth of patents and trademarks from the United States every year, because you can never be as creative as we hear, because you're not free to think and interact with people in a robust way at all. They'll give you a slot and you have to stay within those guardrails, and that limits your ability. So you can never develop the kind of person that God has given you the gift to be. And so the last thing that was said when they got up to leave was, please don't tell anybody what was said here. They made the case for me better than I could have made it. And I want people to reach their full potential too. And there's something about having robust freedom that do all you can do with your life that's a great reward. And we have a lot of that in this country, and I'd like to see it all over the world. Thanks. Good.
Thank you very much, Congress King. Thank you very, very much. And let's give him another round of applause. Thank you. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you very much.
Yeah, for further questions, you can go. Okay. Yeah, and I'll show you that piece of the wall. Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
So our next speaker is Mr. Chris Chappell. You want to find Hong Kong? Okay. Sorry. Okay. We received a video speech from the Hong Kong Legislative Councillor Alan Leong. Liang Jiajie. He is also a senior barrister, the chairman of the Citizen Party of Hong Kong. He participated in 2007, the Hong Kong chief executive election. He could not join us in person, but recorded his message to this forum. We can, please, let's watch the video.
Alan Leung, chairman of the Civic Party in Hong Kong. Today is the 70th anniversary of the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations, and also the establishment of Human Rights Day. On this day, it is good to remind ourselves that human rights are under threat in many places in the free world, and especially in Hong Kong. We have been in this freedom movement for more than 6 months now, and not yet seeing the final resolution of the freedom movement. What is important is that the free world is seeing their future by looking at what is happening on the ground in Hong Kong. Many in the free world have...
New York Chris Chappell is a popular host of China Uncensored that has more than 2 million viewers, and also posts on YouTube, NTD TV, Apple TV, Roku, and Fire TV. Chris reports uncensored news and the truth about CCP and China with satirical humor. Joining him to our forum today are his producer, Matt Gunasta, and humor ninja Sherry Zhang. Let's welcome them. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here speaking to you on International Human Rights Day. I'm Chris Chappell. I'm the host of the TV shows China Uncensored and America Uncovered. So for 7 years, China Uncensored has used humor to inform ordinary Americans about how the Chinese Communist Party is affecting their lives. Some of the speakers here today have very eloquently described a China ruled by the Chinese Communist Party for the last 70 years. A China that is the largest authoritarian state in the world, a place where people are tortured because of their beliefs, placed under house arrest for trying to help others, and tear-gassed for asking for the basic right of self-determination. But outside this room, China experts, politicians, business people have described another China, a China that is filled with economic opportunity, a responsible geopolitical power, an upholder of the international order. Sure, this China may have some human rights problems, but with more engagement, we can change China. As President Bill Clinton said, the more we bring China into the world, the more we will bring freedom to China. But when I was in Hong Kong earlier this year, running from riot police as tear gas exploded around me, I got to thinking, hey, maybe the world isn't bringing freedom to China. Over the years, the Chinese Communist Party has promised many things. Under one country, two systems, the Chinese Communist Party promised that it would not seek to change Hong Kong for at least 50 years. But they have repeatedly tried to change Hong Kong with draconian laws, influence campaigns, and the slow erosion of Hong Kong's rights and freedoms, and all in less than 22 years. When China joined the WTO, the Chinese Communist Party promised to follow the rules of an international trading system. But they repeatedly broke those rules with price controls, subsidies, and flagrant intellectual property theft. The Chinese Communist Party promised it would not militarize the islands it was building in the South China Sea. It broke that promise too. How long until we realize that China isn't going to keep its promises? We have fundamentally failed to understand the nature of the Chinese Communist Party. we'd like to ignore the fact that it is a communist party. Whether you call it Marxist-Leninism or Maoism or Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for the new era, communism is an ideology that is based on the idea of struggle. There is no win-win mutual cooperation. Only those with power and those without. And the Communist Party must be the one with power. People who believe in engagement with China warn that if the United States gets too confrontational, that will tell the Chinese Communist Party that it can get confrontational too. And that would be bad. Because imagine if the Chinese Communist Party allowed dangerous drugs like fentanyl to be exported to the US, fueling an opioid epidemic that's killing thousands of Americans a year. Imagine if the Chinese Communist Party said it was investing in developing countries, but was really supporting authoritarian regimes taking over the resources of these countries and trapping them in massive debt. Imagine if the Chinese Communist Party used money and access to get Hollywood to censor movies, and think tanks to censor policy ideas, universities to censor academics, and the media to censor their coverage of China. Of course, we don't have to imagine any of this because that is what is happening. And this will not stop unless we do something about it. The sad truth is we did not change China, but China changed us. With carrots and sticks, the Chinese Communist Party trained us to be so afraid of how they could react, what they might do, that they blinded us to what they are doing. They got us to believe that the only way to bring democracy to China is to support an authoritarian regime. But there is good news. Even after 40 years of engagement, it's not too late for America to wake up to the true nature of the Chinese Communist Party. And the first step is to look clearly and closely at what the Chinese Communist Party is doing in China and around the world, and to tell people about it. That's what everyone in this room is doing today. And just to show that things can change, recently Congress passed 2 bills supporting Hong Kong protesters as they stand up to the Chinese Communist Party. They were passed almost unanimously and signed into law by President Trump. That means Democrats, Republicans, and President Trump all agreed on something. If that doesn't convince you miracles are possible, I don't know what will. But there's still a long way to go, and the next few years are crucial. We must continue to stand up to the Chinese Communist Party. That's the only way to get the party to stand down. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for listening today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can we broadcasting the, okay, let's do the video watching from Hong Kong Legislative Legislative Councillor Alan Leong. He's a senior barrister, the chairman of the Citizen Party of Hong Kong. He participated in 2007, the Hong Kong chief executive election. He could not join us today, so he recorded his message to the forum.
I'm Alan Leong, chairman of the Civic Party in Hong Kong. Today is the 70th anniversary of the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations, and also the establishment of Human Rights Day. On this day, it is good to remind ourselves that human rights are under threat in many places in the free world, and especially in Hong Kong. We have been in this freedom movement for more than 6 months now, and not yet seeing the final resolution of the freedom movement. What is important is that the free world is seeing their future by looking at what is happening on the ground in Hong Kong. Many in the free world have reflected on how they would face the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, by watching what is happening in Hong Kong. Hong Kong has occupied this very unique position of a city that embraces the same ideologies, core values and institutions of the free world, liberal democracies of the world, and yet we are a Chinese city flying the 5-star red flag. So this is a very unique position occupied by Hong Kong, and for that I think justifies Hong Kong being put in the focus of this world order today, where the liberal democratic world is facing up to the China model promoted by the Chinese Communist Party. So I hope the free world would continue to watch Hong Kong, and you are not only helping Hong Kong by focusing on what is happening here. By doing so, you are also helping yourselves to stand up against the authoritarian regime and the CCP threat. Now, one of the most important human rights enshrined and protected by the Declaration of Human Rights is, of course, religious freedom and the right to practice your own religion. And Falun Gong, I understand, has been persecuted over the mainland for many years now, and it is very important for the CCP to respect the right to practice one's own religion, and with particular reference to Falun Gong. So I hope that by reminding ourselves of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights today on its 70th anniversary, it will also help to make CCP aware that if it is going to respect the practice of Falun Gong in the mainland, it will also help the CCP to gain the confidence and trust of the free world, which is, I think, very important at this particular historic juncture that we are finding ourselves in today.
Thank you, Legislator Alan Leong. Thank you very much.
It's okay. Yeah, before we move on to the next speaker, we receive a letter of support from Congressman Rob Whitman of state of Virginia. I want to read these letters, very brief letters. Dear human rights activists, scholars, leaders, Falun Gong practitioners, and all other attendees, I would like to recognize the 71st anniversary of International Human Rights Day. Not only is this a day for remembrance and respect, it also provides an opportunity to look towards a bright future and support for religious freedom. Persecution of any person based on their religious views should not be acceptable. The role of government should be focused on protecting and supporting all citizens. Americans understand that we have been given certain unalienable rights that our governments can never infringe on. As we move into the future, I commend you all for your continued work to recognize the 71st anniversary of International Human Rights Day. Please let me know if there is anything that I can do to help with in the future. I send you my best regards on this day of recognitions and look forward to hearing of your success in the future. With kind regards, I remain sincerely Robert Whitman, a member of the Congress. Thank you.
Thank you. We also like to thank Congressman Bill Posey. He borrowed this room for us. His staff is not here.
Yeah, we would like to formally thank Congressman Bill Posey of Florida, who has been very supportive to our causes in the past, who reserved this room for our forum today. Thank you, Congressman Posey. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Our next speaker is Dr. Wang Ziyuan from New York. He's the president of the World Organization to Investigate the Persecution of Falun Gong. Let's welcome Dr. Wang Ziyuan.
女士们、先生们，大家好。首先，感谢主办方在中共迫害法轮功20年，特别是中共活摘法轮功学员器官的20年，在国际人权日，在美国的国会来举办这样一个研讨会，在这里揭露中共的罪恶，这就十分的重要。Greeting everyone. First, I would like to thank you organizers holding this crucial forum. This year, we not only the 20 years of persecution against Falun Gong by Chinese Communist Party, CCP, but also is 20 years of CCP housed organ from living Falun Gong practitioner. This crime must be exposed, which make our the forum is today is especially as meaningful. 我叫王志远，今天到这里来代表追查国际，来报告几个有关中共奴工产品迫害民众、危害国际社会的几个问题。My name is 志远王。On behalf of World Organization to investigate persecution of Falun Gong, WORPFG, I'm here today to present damage to United States and the world of the CCP slave labor industry. 追查国际调查中共对法轮功学员的残酷迫害10多年来，获得了大量的证据，证明中国现行的奴工企业是利用全中国的监狱人力资源建成的国有独资企业，是由中国监狱企业转换成中共全国统一军事化管理、司法机构直接领导、国家财政支持的国家奴工产业。由于这些企业高度统一的管理，劳力资源呢几乎是没有成本的奴工，而且在挑战人的生理或心理极限的酷刑逼迫下的强制的劳动，是集合了全国的监狱劳教者洗脑班人力资源的巨大规模，加上有中国经济信息的支援和国家外贸经济的支持，还有国家财政的协助，这就造成了一种超级强大的而且超越限制的经济贸易实体，为中国进行国际的经济侵略提供了一个超强的巨大无比的战略武器。因此全世界任何一个国家的企业都不可能以此抗衡。During more than a dozen years, investigation into the brutal persecution against Falun Gong practitioners by the CCP, WORPFG has obtained large quantity evidence confirmed the China's current slave labor enterprises entire state-owned entity established by using human and material resources in the prisons throughout China. The prison's enterprise system has been transformed into the national slave labor industry under the unlawful military-style management of the CCP. 好，那我就英语就少说一点了。因为时间的限制啊，我只是讲几个这个重点。The following are just talk several key points damage United States and world by the Chinese slave labor industry. First, 第一个是人权的迫害。中共的监狱系统的企业主要是用于两个方面，一个是人权的迫害，第二个是经济的侵略。人权的迫害，我只举对法轮功的迫害。据现在有权威性的多方面的资料证明，每天至少有超过100多万的法轮功学员被强迫在监狱或者是洗脑班进行强制劳动，遭受迫害。第二个是对人类的道德良知的毁灭性的迫害。人们啊，因为中国的谎言欺骗，还有这个产品的低廉的价格，使人们呢是在很多国家政府还有这个企业还有这个用户在看到了中共这种貌似以这个物美价廉的产品就忘掉了人们应该遵守的道德的操守甚至于出卖了良知，成为了中共奴工产品企业给人类迫害的帮凶。第三个就是扰乱了国际社会的经济秩序，破坏了相应国家的劳动力市场。第四个就是个奴工产品还对人们的健康造成了很大的威胁。因此我们追查国际在今天这个时节，在美国的国会向美国政府和全世界各国政府提出以下的呼吁和要求：一，要正视并杜绝中共奴工产业进入美国及国际市场，消灭危害中国人和世界人民的中共奴工的经济侵略。第二，深度调查中共奴工产业和其产品外销对世界的影响。第三，严格执行相关的美国和国际的法律，制裁中共奴工产业及其产品。第四，制定新的法规，弥补现有法律的不足，根除这一危害人类危害各国人民的这种奴工产业。好，对对，好 ，OK。这谁念？我念你念，你帮我念，就在这儿，完了。你念的就更好一点。好，谢谢大家。
In China, there are millions of detainers being forced to perform slave labor in prison, re-education, brainwashed camps, detention centers, illegal jail, reformation legal education center, drug rehabilitation institutes, juvenile prisoners, secret camps, and other detention facilities. All detainees in such facilities are forced to perform slave labor. That's the first one for persecution and human rights violation. The second one is the scale of CCP slave labor industry. The CCP government uses unified military-style management to turn prisons, re-education camps, forced labor camps, and other detention facilities into an organized slave labor enterprise system. It provides substantial support and favorable subsidies in terms of finances, trade policies, and foreign diplomacy to help its slave labor industry grow. A 2019 WOIPFG report entitled "The Chinese Communist Party's State-Run Prison Slave Labor Industry, the CCP's Secret Weapon in the Trade War," lists 681 such state-owned prison enterprises across 30 Chinese provinces, cities, and autonomous region. Since the CCP started its suppression of Falun Gong practitioners in 1999, joined the World Trade Organization WTO in 2001, and started pursuing economic globalization in 2003, its slave labor economy has enjoyed a rapid multifold growth. The third one is the CCP slave labor industry disrupts international community's economic order and undermines labor markets in many countries. As the CCP slave labor produces the ultra-low-cost flood the international society, the United States and other countries' labor market and economic suffer large losses and heavy damages. Through its unfair and unethical trade, especially after China's ascension into WTO, the CCP has caused the bankruptcy of thousands of factories and companies in the United States, with tens of thousands of employees losing their jobs. The fourth one, slave labor products are health hazards to consumers. According to the WOIPFG's 2019 report, the Chinese Communist Party's state-run poison slave labor industry, the CCP's secret weapon in the trade war, the CCP's slave labor products are produced under extreme harsh conditions. Slave laborers work in extremely poor conditions and at a squalid location. These products are often contaminated by human excrements, such as feces and pathogens. Their quality and hygiene certificates are all falsified. Numerous reports have shown that the Chinese exports to toys, daily necessities, food and construction materials have caused serious harm to U.S. consumers. The fifth, the CCP destruction of humans' moral conscience. By using its enormous propaganda machine, the CCP instills lies into the minds of the people all over the world. They use financial and other means of enticement to export its labor slave products to the entire world. When people use this seemingly good quality and cheap products, they don't realize the evil behind these products. When the governments and people of many countries turn a blind eye to these slave labor products circulation even after realizing their origins, they would have betrayed their moral conscience due to economic enticement, and they can be said to have become the CCP's company. Think of that. When human society abandons its moral baseline in pursuit of economic interests, it will be an enormous catastrophe for humanity. The consequence will be unimaginable. Thank you.
好，谢谢大家。
Yeah, if there are any questions to President Wang Ziyuan, you can go ahead in the hallway. Okay. Yeah. Before we go to the next speaker, Mr. Chen Guangcheng, I want to formally recognize Mr. Tom McAuliffe, who,
Thank you very much.
yeah, who is the legislative assistant of Congressman Bill Posey's office, who has been very supportive to our
Congressman
causes.
Posey rent this, borrowed this house for us, this room for us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so yeah, who has been very supportive to our causes and reserved this room for us to use today. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you, Tom. Do you want to say anything? Okay.
Our next speaker is the Chen Guangchen. Our next speaker is a renowned blind Chinese bar-food lawyer. He is a distinguished fellow institute for policy research at the Catholic University of America. Let's welcome Mr. Chen Guangchen.
谢谢。非常感谢各位朋友，大家好，今天是人权日啊，非常高兴在这儿跟大家呢一起这个交流、探讨。那么，消灭共产专制政权的时机基本成熟，天时地利人和，差不多都已经具备了。所以我觉得20年过去以后
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Chen Guangchen. On this International Human Rights Day, we are here to witness what is going to come to China.
从目前的来的各方面的信息来看，我们看，首先香港半年多的这个反抗中共暴政的行动，从反恶法到反专制，逐步的由标入本，触及到事情的本质所在。
As we have witnessed for the past 6 months what's happening in Hong Kong, we're gradually seeing a potential change in Hong Kong and China.
那么香港在一国两制的这种情况下，不同于完全沦陷于中共魔爪之下的内地，所以它具备着无论是从时间还是地理上具备着缓冲的这样的一个时间，所以它具备非常好的地利，来通过香港的反抗行动和中共的残暴，让全世界认清中共的邪恶本质。
Because Hong Kong is under one country, two systems, which is different from the inside mainland China, and it has this geographical benefit showing what, for the past 6 months, what happened to the whole world.
从国际形势来看，我们看到最近有这么几个重要的信息，简单的给大家提一下。第一个就是美国通过香港人权与民主法案，以及美国将决定利用 Magnitsky 人权问责法来惩罚中共系统当中迫害人权的人。还有一个就是最近2个重要的消息，一个就是关于瑞士银行的100名中国排名富豪达7.8万亿的这个存款的这个消息。那么还有就是北约非常明确地指明中共是自由世界的公敌，下一步将重点把军力用来对付中共，而且一定要打胜这一仗。
So internationally, as we witness that USA has passed this Hong Kong human rights law, and also in the meantime, Swiss Bank revealed there are 100 Chinese people that are holding like 80 billion US dollars or 800 billion US dollars. Okay, sorry about that number. 8万亿不知道要怎么翻译。7.8万亿。Okay, 7.8 trillion US dollars. And also, we also heard that from NATO. They now announce CCP is the worst or one of the worst enemies they will face.
所以这是什么？这是天时啊，对不对啊？整个世界对于共产专制这种结束了这个绥靖政策，开始对中共逐步强硬起来，无论是贸易战也好，刚才我们提到的也好，这都说明天时已经具备了。那么最后一点，人和，无论是美国的朝野 智库、民间组织，还是中国普通的百姓，对于共产专制是造成中国一系列灾难的总根源的这个认识，我觉得已经达到一个相当高的程度。大家可以不说。
Yeah, also the timing is perfect, and in the meantime, there's all around China, inside and outside China, people already recognize all the trouble comes from CCP.
所以我觉得，经过这些年大家共同的努力，不管是法轮功也好，藏人也好，其他的国内的信仰者也好，维权人士也好，维权律师也好，尽管遭受了中共各种各样打压迫害，但是我们把这种形势推到今天的这样一个重要的历史关口，非常关键。
So for all the past so many years, the persecution of Falun Gong, persecution in Tibet, and Uyghurs in Xinjiang, it has pushed everything to this stage that CCP has to change.
所以中共已经到了遭劫在树、在树难逃的这样一个境地，可以说它的末日马上就要来到了。你看看中共在国内做的这些事情，已经是人神共怒了。
So for CCP, it's obvious their days are numbered.
所以我觉得接下来我们很可能会看到像当年商纣王即将灭亡之前的那种景象。从老百姓来讲，大家都不像原来怨声载道，都吓得不太敢说话了，但是心里非常清楚。从朝内来讲，很多官员都背弃中共，逃离中共，那这就是中共大限已到的一个非常清楚的表现。
Even those who are inside the CCP, those high-ranking officials, they are also escaping from CCP. And this, again, just similar to what back in long history of China, Shang Zhou Wang, at the time. So CCP definitely will be destroyed soon.
所以从最近还有消息传出来说，中共内部自己已经认为走上绝路，没有什么办法了。尽管表面上还在支撑着，可是历史的潮流，共产党是没有办法逆转的。尽管他用尽了浑身的解数来打击国内的觉醒者，影响甚至腐蚀西方民主国家的政商各界的人士，但是他的命运，他的衰落，他即将被人民扫入历史的这个结果是没有办法改变的。
So even the insiders, in, for example, recent interview, or they reveal that they know CCP is going to be gone soon. So for the coming days, we are going to recognize the CCP is going to be destroyed.
所以我想说，目前是一个非常关键的历史时刻。我想呢，咱们各界的希望中华神州能够重回那种神传文化也好，这种传统的优良的一些文化也好，那么我们应该携起手来，在这个时候，除了继续我们原来揭露中共的罪恶之外，应该着手反击了，到时候了。
So, for the rest of us, we know the traditional Chinese culture and all those good values we treasure the most. We are going to keep it up to date, keep it going on, and also in the meantime, we are going to make sure we are ready for when CCP is gone.
自助者天助之手持正固可获平安。所以我们呢，只要携起手来立足于正义，去讨伐中共这样一个残害生灵的邪恶政权，我们必定会取得成功。在这个问题上，没有什么不可能。小善不为人知， 酒后必有大福，何况是大善。让我们一起携起手来，去消灭共产专制政权对人类的肆虐。谢谢大家。
Thank you. So we should have confidence and let's hand in hand to finally celebrate when CCP is fully gone, and we're going to have confidence. Thanks.
谢谢大家，谢谢。
Yeah, we have one more video speech from a Hong Kong Legislative Party member. Then the speaker, please come up the panel table, and we may have a few minutes for the member of media to ask questions.
I'm the chairman of Democratic Parties, Wu Chi-wai. The human rights of Hong Kong is basically protected by the Basic Law, and it's stipulated in the Basic Law. It's scattered around in different articles. But we can see in the past 22 years, there's a lot of interference coming from the mainland China, making use of the loopholes inbuilt in the Basic Law. Taking, for example, when they try to reinterpret the provision of the Basic Law, different articles, then a lot of time they will make a lot of additional things in order to make the interpretation geared towards their thoughts, to assure the power that originally only implicitly stipulated in the Basic Law can be explicitly used by the mainland China if one day they found necessary. Taking, for example, in the latest interpretation of Basic Law Article 104, talking about the oath and declarations provisions. In the old day, when we try to take our oath and declarations when we are in the office of being the legislator, we only have to declare we are loyal to the Basic Law and loyal to the Hong Kong SAR government. But in the interpretation, they introduce a very small and simple words, but make a huge difference. In the interpretation, I recall it's the paragraph 3 of the interpretation. It declared that when we are talking about the People Republics of China, Hong Kong SAR government, they interpret in the way that you have to be loyal to also the national constitutions of the PRC. Not like in the past, we only have to be loyal to Hong Kong SAR government, Hong Kong Basic Law. So that makes a lot of difference because they insert a word "and" over there. They say the understanding of the Article 104 should be read in the way that when we are taking the oath, we are taking the declarations, we also have to demonstrate we have to be loyal to PRC and Hong Kong SAR government. That means both of the constitution will be abided by people that are taking the oath and declarations. So to me, that means the CCP introduced an additional power if one day they find it necessary that they would like to DQ or disqualify any legislator. They may find ways or find some reasoning or rational ideas coming from the national constitutions that saying that those legislators are found not abide by the national constitutions. So that is one of the examples to show that the human rights situation in Hong Kong gradually eroded by the way that the mainland China tried to put a big hand to intervene in the Hong Kong affairs. And again, that is a lot of time we have to fight against on, because according to the basic law, other than national defense and foreign affairs things, it should all be treated as Hong Kong internal affairs matters. And as a result, that should be read to the Hong Kong as a government as a demonstration. Example to show that the human rights situation in Hong Kong gradually eroded. And you can also find in the statement issued by the State Department of the CCP, saying that a lot of time you found the word high degree of autonomy missing. So it also another subtle way to show that the human rights issue in Hong Kong are being eroded by the interventions. By the interference hand coming from the mainland, although it is not publicly announced that they are not going to have one country, two system in Hong Kong, but to us it is quite straightforward that the CCP or the mainland China, the mainland government would like to have only the facade of one country, two system, but they want to take away all the substance inside of it. And as a result, we people has to get together in order to fight for the freedom, fight for the core values to be upheld in Hong Kong by the basic law that is promised to be given to Hong Kong peoples. So I would say the past 6 month movement is all along these lines of thought, because we found our basic core value are being hurt and even damaged by the I would say wrongdoing of the Hong Kong government, try to open up the back door of the basic law to allow the mainland law can be implemented or influenced in Hong Kong law. And that is the very fundamental things that shows the one country two system, if that will be undermined, is basically coming from those people that betraying Hong Kong core value, namely Hong Kong as a government, Carrie Lam, or all those members coming from the Executive Council members, and also those politically responsible policy head. So we need to get together, and we all have to understand that our biggest enemies are basically coming from the north. And according to the 2014 white paper showing how, the implementation of one country two system, is showing that the mainland government would like to extend their influence to Hong Kong and hold full jurisdiction over Hong Kong. Executive Council members and also those politically responsible policy heads. So we need to get together. The north, and according to the 2014 white paper showing how the implementation of one country two system, is showing that the mainland government would like to extend their influence in Hong Kong and hold full jurisdiction over Hong Kong.
Let me invite the speakers to come to the stage, Dr. Charles Lee, Chris Chappell, for some question and answers. I know that there are members of medias are still here. Feel free to ask questions, including speak Chinese. That will be okay too. Then after that, we will take a group pictures. Okay. Then very soon we will conclude the forum. Okay. Please think about your questions. Let me thank all of you to come to attend. It's a very brave deed to really attend this events like this. I want to commend you all to spend time to come to this and become visible. Give a round of applause to yourself. Okay. To be able to brave enough to attend the events. Then, are there any questions for the speakers on the stage in general, member of medias? Okay. You can speak Chinese if you want to. Okay, let me start with the questions to Mr. Chen Guangchen. Okay. He mentioned about 天时地利人和, so it's coming along. Okay. How do you think the Hong Kong protests? We have 2 legislative councillors to speak today. How about the Hong Kong protest democratic movement ongoing related to the collapse of communism? 香港的示威是跟中共的解体你认为有什么样的关系？
非常直接啊！实际上，香港的这种抗议在中国国内有着深远的影响，只不过是由于这种中共的高压政策，很多人对于香港的事情都心里很清楚，但是他们并不太多在网上公开的写出来，因为你只要写出来，哪怕是你转推几个消息，中共就会直接把你送进这个看守所。那么在这种情况下，我觉得大家只有在那种私密的空间里，大家在讨论香港的这些事情。从这个角度讲，我觉得香港已经点燃了中国的民主之火。大家也看到了，在这个广东的茂名，他们也完全喊出了光复茂名的口号。那很显然，这个说法是来自于香港。那也就是说，在中国人民的心中，这个自由的火种已经被香港的示威抗议、争取人权的这个做法给点燃，只是等待一个好的时机，就会爆发出惊人的力量。所以我觉得，香港是民主与专制的一个过渡区，不管是从政治层面、制度层面，还是从地理层面，都是这样的。那么现在国际社会已经把注意力注意在香港，接下来我相信，那么面对中共的全球围剿，将逐步的开展，有条不紊的向前推进。
Okay, Hong Kong, as we have seen in the past 6 months, the CCP has been secretly persecuting actually thousands of Hong Kong citizens. Not many news has been sent out regarding those persecutions, but we did hear some of those what they called commit suicide, or those who were fell off buildings. But at the same time, the Hong Kong movement has been influencing inside China. For example, we heard about Guangdong Province, Maoming City. Some of the Chinese people already learned from Hong Kong movement, and pretty soon we're going to see. Actually, Hong Kong is now a showcase for international every country to see what's going on. So we're pretty sure Hong Kong will bring as like a buffer zone between the free world and the CCP-controlled China. So pretty soon this movement, Hong Kong movement, will get inside China soon.
I think the key point for the protesting in Hong Kong is that the people in Hong Kong do not want to accept the CCP's tyranny. So if you read the Declaration of Independence for this country, it says in the declaration that the government must get the consent from the governed. So if the government doesn't serve the needs of the governed, then the government has the right to overthrow the government. So the consent from the government is the key for any legitimacy of the government. So if you look at the history, in human history, there are several, ways, the government get the legitimacy. Like in China, people always say that the emperor is the son of the heaven. So in China, people get the emperor get the authority from the heaven. In ancient Western countries, they get the authority from God. And in democratic countries, the government get authority by the votes. The people go vote for the governor or government. So in China, the CCP is totally different from all these formats. They use violence. They force people to accept the CCP, or they use lies by brainwashing people, to sort of being duped to accept their authority. So the key point is that if you look at the history of the Falun Gong peaceful anti-persecution, the key point also is that the Falun Gong practitioners do not want to accept the persecution, do not want to be brainwashed. So they peacefully resist, never accept the CCP's authority in its doing, whatever they want to do for the violation against human rights. So therefore, the people in Hong Kong actually has hit the key point to end the CCP's tyranny by not accepting them. So this is very hopeful. Thank you.
Any more questions? Yes? Okay. You have any microphone? There?
My question is to Chris. Today, this event is celebrate over 300 millions of Chinese people announced quit the CCP. In your view, what's the power or positive contribution from them, or from the principle of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance? Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
In your view, what's the positive contribution to the world from the principle of the truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance?
Well, in reference to the Tweedong movement, as the number stands about 300 million, that's a sign that the Chinese Communist Party is losing its grip on the Chinese population. So, and particularly with the Falun Gong movement, you see a movement to sort of revitalize a traditional spiritual culture that the Chinese Communist Party actively sought to destroy in China. As one of the first things they tried to destroy in Chinese culture. So, yeah, it's a collective effort of the Chinese people to kind of cast off the regime of the Chinese Communist Party and restore traditional Chinese culture.
Any more questions? Any questions about Hong Kong or anything, any news? No? So, okay. Let's close today's forum. Thank you very much for your attending. Thank you very much for our speakers. Thank you so much.